is BBC News. I'm Luxmi Gopal, and these are the latest headlines at 11. Britain's first ever red extreme heat warning comes into effect for most of England as the country gets ready for what could become the hottest day on record, with London becoming one of the hottest places in the world. High temperatures are forecast across the UK, with amber warnings in the rest of England, all of Wales and parts of Scotland, with warnings also of travel disruption.
So we think, have to be kind of sensible and steady. In particular, take measures to be hydrated, stay in the shade, do all the things that we think are the sort of things you might do on a very hot day on a holiday overseas.
The government holds emergency COBRA meetings in response to the heatwave, as climate experts tell the BBC extreme weather like this could become the norm.
Warning of climate change and the warming that we're seeing, that this is only getting worse, right? So that the likelihood that we're going to see more things like this is very high.
A heat wave in southern Europe sees wildfires spread across large areas, prompting mass evacuations of residents and tourists. In other news, Conservative leadership... Good morning. Now we start first with some breaking news that's come through in the past few minutes about the televised debate that was due to be happening on 41 degrees Celsius forecast. The Met Office has issued its first ever red warning for heat across large parts of England, stretching from York and Manchester to London and the South East. And the extreme heat continues tomorrow before cooling on Wednesday. The UK Health Security Agency has issued a level 4 warning for England, meaning there's a danger to life and the threat of major travel disruption. The government is treating it as a national emergency. Network Rail said people should travel only if absolutely necessary today and Tuesday, with some cancellations already announced and speed restrictions in place across the network. Some schools plan to close early or not open at all, although the government has issued guidance designed to keep them open. London is set to be one of the hottest places in the world today, with temperatures soaring above the Western Sahara and the Caribbean. The capital is forecast to be hotter than the Bahamas and Kingston in Jamaica, Malaga in Spain and Athens in Greece. Our climate correspondent Jonah Fisher has been to see how people are preparing.
It might be a very busy next few days for the fire service in Oxford.
This weekend we've already had a couple of incidents where people have got into trouble in the water and we've had to come and rescue them. So my message will be please stay out of the water, stay out of open water. It is hugely dangerous.
Extremely hot weather sadly means more people dying. Take last year, for example. The government estimates there were 1,600 excess deaths caused by the heat. And last year wasn't even particularly hot. The top temperature was 32.2 degrees.
Still worse than the
couple of days, it could be 8 degrees hotter than that.
The message for those in areas where a red warning is in place is that it can't be business as usual. The weather heading this way from southern Europe is so hot that people should think about changing their routines and plans.
Make sure that they have access to water, that they drink plenty of water, that they stay in the shade, that they remain cool, and that they take simple precautions to make sure that they avoid the adverse impact on health that these high temperatures can have.
The government has asked us to look out for vulnerable relatives and neighbours and has increased capacity on the call handling service for ambulances.
I would encourage people to heed the warnings that are out there. We have that balance where we might not see very much good weather and we want to enjoy it, but we're talking about temperatures that we've not experienced in this country ever, never mind for a long time. Our bodies, our houses, our culture, our way of life is just not geared up for it.
But we're going to have to get used to it. The greenhouse gases we put into the atmosphere from burning fossil fuels trap the sun's energy and warm the earth at a rate of about 1/4 degree every 10 years.
Well, heat waves is one of the clearest signs in extreme weather of human influence on climate. It's one of the extreme weather events that we can be most confident about are being affected by rising global temperatures.
So is it too late for us to turn this around?
It's absolutely not too late because future warming is determined by future emissions. If we stop dumping carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, the world will stop warming. It's that simple.
The rapid action on emissions has not proved simple. Will the soaring temperatures outside make fighting climate change a real priority? Jonah Fisher, BBC News.
Dr. Lisa Schipper is a research fellow at Oxford University's Environmental Change Institute. We asked her about the link between climate change and the extreme heat we're seeing.
At the moment, we're not entirely sure if climate change is specifically to blame for this heat wave, but obviously in the recent past we've seen that climate change has caused heat waves over the last few years, and so I think that it's very likely that this is also going to be caused by climate change. It's important to understand the climate system is complicated and there are many different factors at play. So sort of the combination of the heat that's coming early and the dryness and then sort of all these things combined is what actually makes it so challenging and difficult. And then of course the experience is quite extreme for people who aren't used to it, like in the UK.
Well, Dr. Lisa Schipper there. Well, Andrew Plant is in Twycross Zoo in Leicestershire for us. Andrew, how are they coping and preparing there?
Yeah, here at Twycross, the temperature is just about touching 30 degrees, but the forecast for later, around about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon here, is for it to go up to 37, possibly 38 degrees here in the Midlands. So it's going to get pretty hot, as we've heard so much over the past few days. Animals, especially the ones in big fur coats, need cooling down as well. So I don't know how much you can see through this glass here, but they've put out the ice blocks. They sort of hang them on the blocks of wood that you've got there, put a couple on the ground, and Batu, you might just be able to see the big male orangutan is just coming out of his enclosure. Can you pick him up through the glass there? There he comes. So he's just coming out to find some ice to help him keep cool. They've been sheltering where presumably it's a bit cooler in the shade, but he's just coming out to try and find some of that ice now. I might keep the camera on him. We're just going to have a chat to Annalise, who's the one of the zookeepers here. He's impressive, isn't he?
He is, yeah. He's very large, bless him. Very fluffy, so need to keep him cool in this weather.
And he knows what he's doing, obviously. He's done this before.
Oh yeah, we work quite regularly in hot weather. We'll give them like ice treats. So it's normally fruit tea that we just freeze. Sometimes we put bits of their food in it, so it's a bit more, so they play with it for a bit longer and they have to get the bits of food out of it. But yeah, he knows what he's doing.
He's a tried and tested technique,
Yeah.
and he's the big male here.
He is, he's our breeding male, yes.
Yeah, lovely. So they've got big fur coats, obviously.
Yeah.
They're going to get very hot.
Yeah.
Presumably, this is one of the few places in the world actually you've got 4 of the grey snakes, haven't you? Here, so you're sort of used to trying to cool them down.
Yeah.
Any other techniques you have, sort of ice baths or anything?
No, so we make sure that they have plenty to drink, plenty of water. We try and keep all their inside areas well ventilated and cool so that they've got the option of outside and inside, so they'll have access all day to this run. So they can pick and choose where they want to be to try and avoid the midday heat.
Yeah. And what about some of the other animals here? Because some of them really are built for the winter, aren't they?
They are, yeah. So obviously each animal, each species is acclimatised to their own environment in the wild. Obviously all of ours are born in captivity, so they struggle in the heat a little bit as well. But we just do our best to try and keep them as cool as possible. So animals like our snow leopards, they're from quite a cold climate, so they've got thicker fur, so we'd obviously make more measures to make sure that they're definitely cool in this kind of weather.
Yeah, you don't want to be a snow leopard in 30-degree
Not
heat,
really, no.
do you? So what will he do for the rest of the day? What's his plan?
So he'll probably, so we feed them throughout the day to keep them busy, keep them active and entertained. So he will probably come out, have some ice, and then he'll probably go back inside and have a sleep or have a forage around for whatever food's left inside. So he'll have been cleaned out this morning and had his breakfast inside, so he'll be foraging around for that.
I mean, I was having a look. I couldn't find any recorded temperatures in this kind of area of the world above really 35 degrees, but we're getting well above that today. Have you been planning for this for a while about how you're going to cope with that?
Yeah, so we knew last week that it was going to be warm this week, so obviously we've made sure that we've kept the freezers well stocked up. So we've got quite a few freezers and we've got lots and lots of, so we've saved like old yoghurt pots and things like that, and we fill them up and that's what we freeze stuff in. And we make sure that, like we say, we're giving them plenty of fluid throughout the day so that they're cool, keeping their temperatures cool. And we provide lots of shade for them in their runs and stuff as well. So we have,
the rest of the family's coming up there, isn't it?
we've got our female come out, Malaku, and then her young son Basuki, he's following her as well. So they're they're coming out to have a look. They'll probably wait for Batu to move out the way and then they'll go and have a look.
And do you keep a sort of closer eye on animals? Because in humans, obviously, you can sort of see the signs of heat exhaustion, heat stroke, people getting tired and dehydrated, etc. Much more difficult in an animal, presumably.
Yeah, so animals, it can be harder to spot, but they do have pretty similar signs to us. Like they'll start to be like a little bit lethargic and less active. So we do keep a really, really close eye on them in this sort of weather. Make sure that they're at their best.
Okay, Annalise, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And that is what they're doing here at Twycross Zoo. I will leave you with pictures of Batu, the dominant male here, as he is actually stopped for a bit of a sunbathe there just to find a bit more ice. And his family at the top of that platform there, I think probably coming down to get some too.
Andrew, thank you. Yes, that slow orangutan pace is exactly the kind of pace we need to be taking in this heat. Thank you. Well, now let's speak to Kate Walter, Director of Rhino Safety. She doesn't actually work with rhinos, I know we've been talking about animals, but she heads up her health and safety management company. So thank you very much for joining us, Kate. Now, first of all, what sort of questions and concerns are employers and employees approaching you with? Oh, I don't know if you could hear me, Kate. Can you hear me all right? Hi, Kate. I don't know if you can hear me. Can I just check you can hear me all right? It looks like we haven't got the sound up there. So what we'll do is we'll try and come back to Kate a little bit later. Let's see if we can get the link up to speak to her a little bit later. But let's now get more on the extreme heat. We're going to be, we are now going to be speaking to Abby Brooks, Dr. Abby Brooks, a GP in York. Thanks for your patience and waiting for us to decide what we're going to be doing next. Let's speak to Dr. Abby Brooks now. Abby, thank you so much for joining us. Now, first of all, we hear a lot about the impact on vulnerable people and how much of a risk this is for them. But can you just clarify which groups are most vulnerable and why exactly they are?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me. So everyone's at risk when it's a red warning, but particularly young babies, so those under the age of a year and particularly under the age of 6 months, and the elderly and those with underlying medical problems, especially if you're on some medication that might cause you to lower your blood pressure or diuretics, which already kind of encourage you to get dehydrated in slightly warmer weather.
And in terms of what it is that makes the heat cause this extra risk, what's the process behind it? What's the medical reason for it?
So the main concern is excess dehydration. So if you're already vulnerable to dehydration, that's going to be worse with these very extreme temperatures. So your kidneys will ultimately struggle, and ultimately, if it was left to severe dehydration, stop working. So drinking plenty of fluids and thinking about if you are on a significant medication that affects your kidneys and you're experiencing this extremely high heat, following the instructions that you may have been given about rules if you're unwell or if it's extremely hot.
And can you explain the difference between heat exhaustion and heat stroke?
Yeah, so the two are quite different. Heat exhaustion should be short-lived, in general less than 30 minutes once you've kind of rested, rehydrated and taken to the shade, whereas heat stroke tends to be more significant, doesn't improve with time and would need some urgent medical attention.
And what's one main bit of advice for people who might want to look out for any vulnerable friends, relatives or neighbours?
Yes, so definitely check in on vulnerable people. Check they've got plenty of access to fluids. Check that they have some shady parts of their house. Maybe talk to them about some of the advice the NHS have been given about finding how to keep your house cool and your garden cool. And thinking about the medication they're on. Do they have enough stock of that? Do they need any help? Because they might not want to go out in this weather and they might need some support with that. But the main thing is to drink plenty and make sure that we're all doing that, especially those that are more at risk.
And there are, as ever, voices who say, oh, it's just another summer and why are people getting overly panicked about it? But how worried are you about the effect that the heat might have?
So yeah, I've heard a lot of that directly as well. I think the difference is our preparedness. When you go on holiday, you're used to wearing a hat and putting your sun cream on and keeping in the shade. Whereas when we're at home, we still have to go to work, drop the kids off, and we might not have that as part of our routine. And you know, the surroundings aren't necessarily set up for 40-degree heat, the transport networks, our cars, our homes, etc. So it's absolutely a problem. We're already seeing the effect of that. We're seeing people contacting us with sunburn, with various other sun-related ailments. What I would say is definitely contact your pharmacy or NHS 111 if you're worried about anything. But we should all be taking it seriously and all be taking precautions.
Abby, thank you. Dr. Abby Brooks there speaking to us from York. Let's get more on the extreme heat from our weather presenter, Sarah Keith-Lucas, who joins me now. Hi, Sarah. Now, first of all, unprecedented has been thrown around a lot, hasn't it, that word? But this is very much so, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely unprecedented, Lakshmi. I never thought I'd be talking about temperatures of 40 degrees plus here in the UK, but of course, climate change is just driving those temperatures up and up. We've been saying that for the past 30 years, so here we are in this unprecedented situation, and we're likely to not only break records, but by quite a few degrees as well. Normally, if we sort of break all-time temperature records, it's only by just a fraction of a degree. So this is really something else we're seeing at the moment.
And of course, whatever records are broken today, it's expected that there'll be higher temperatures tomorrow.
Yes, in some areas, yes. So we have got this warning for extreme heat. So red warning, this is the red warning zone, so the areas that are going to be the hottest. So anywhere from London to Leeds to the border of Wales, Lincolnshire as well. That's the area that we are most concerned about both today and tomorrow. And obviously we've got an amber warning for a wider area of England, Wales and southern Scotland as well. But as we were saying, it is going to be probably tomorrow that's going to see those higher temperatures. So what we've got, it's been very, very hot in Portugal and Spain as well. That heat is just driving up across France and in across the UK. So it's squeezing its way gradually northwards and eastwards as well. So today we could see the hottest spots up at around about 40 degrees, perhaps somewhere around the London region. But actually, if we fast forward to tomorrow, you'll notice those temperatures are going to be edging up. So it's areas like parts of Lincolnshire, Cambridgeshire, for instance, where we could see 41. Some computer models have been going for about 42 degrees. So really unprecedented, exceptional and dangerous heat on the cards.
And what is it that distinguishes between an amber heat warning and a red heat warning? Is it simply the temperature?
It's not simply the temperature. So the warnings are done on a matrix system based on how likely an event is to occur and the impact that it will have as well. So, you know, some parts of the country are used to higher temperatures. Here in London, we're used to seeing higher temperatures than you would see in the middle of Scotland. So different infrastructure as well. So it's really an impact-based warning system. So where we've got the red warning, that's the areas that are going to see the highest impact to health, of course, we've been hearing, and infrastructure as well.
Well, Sarah, thank you for giving us that information there. That's Sarah Keith-Lucas, our weather presenter, and we'll, of course, bring you the weather forecasts later throughout the programme. And at 2:30 this afternoon, we'll be answering all your questions on the heatwave. You can send them in to us by tweeting, using the hashtag BBC Your Questions.
And that will also be going up on my channel.
Your questions at bbc.co.uk. For the very latest information on how to stay cool and guard against heat exhaustion and heat stroke, which we were speaking about earlier with the GP Abby Walker there, you can just go to bbc.co.uk/news or the BBC News app to give you a reminder of all the tips and tricks you can use to stay safe. More now on the Tory leadership debate on Sky.